Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for coming, everybody, this morning to Kapolei High School and being here with our candidate, Sheila Medeiros. We did reach out to the incumbent rep, Kanani Souza, but she didn't respond to our request to be here today. So we only got one candidate, but that's okay. We'll continue along. And I'll just say at the top, we're going to talk about the Makakilo Drive extension. I bet a lot of you have questions about that. So just to preface that, we're going to be getting into it in the discussion in case you wanted to ask about something else. So yeah, we'll talk about the road eventually. But Sheila, this is your first time running for office, right? Yeah. Well, why don't you tell us all a little bit about yourself? And I know a lot of people here already know you, but we're going to be having this online on our website for a while. So why don't you talk a little about yourself? I know you said you grew up in Mililani, went into the Army.
So I grew up in Makakilo.
Oh, Makakilo, sorry.
Yeah. So I grew up in Makakilo and Mililani. So I bounced back and forth from Makakilo and Mililani. Went to Makakilo Elementary School, first grade, sixth grade, and then we ended up back in Upper Makakilo my sophomore year, and then ended in Kapolei Knolls, bottom home in Kapolei Knolls. I retired in 2021. I served 34 years in military service, 20 years active duty, 14 years with the Hawaii National Guard. I returned to serve my last tour at Indo-PACOM, Special Operations Command in 2018 to 2021. So I retired August of 2021, decided that I was going to take 1 year off to just relax and enjoy just time off. But that changed when I was asked to be a campaign manager for Gary Cordery's campaign for governor. And that started in early part of 2022. So that was the beginning of my political experience and background, just with the background and foundation of politics. And then I joined, prior to that, I was involved with One Impact Hawaii. And it's a group of women from One Love Ministries where we track legislation from the beginning of session to the end of session. And what we do is we mobilize the faith-based community when there are bills that pertain to family values, parental rights, and pro-life choices. So that was my experience with politics.
You're telling me an interesting story earlier about living in Kapolei years ago, back when this was all just open field and stuff, and seeing some of the sugarcane burning. How do you think Kapolei has changed, over the last few decades?
It's changed quite a lot. Just the landscape itself is just new subdivisions have popped up in Kapolei. Back when I was in sixth grade, I lived on Awawa Street, which is right across, which is now Malama Market. It used to be the pantry. I could jump over my fence, go and get chocolate bars and come back. And not be afraid of all the cars that's zooming down, because I could just run across, run back, no problem. I do miss the sugar canes being burnt and the embers just flowing, and you could smell the sugar. It was very nostalgic. But it has changed. Kapolei is the second city that is now called the second city. And I just wish that there would be more open spaces in Kapolei, because right now we are building more development, especially with the phase 3 of Villages of Kapolei with the Haku Kapolei. They're planning to build 700 to 900 affordable apartments that was planned 40 years ago, where the VA home and treatment facility is. That space right there is 27 acres. The VA's treatment facility and home takes up 7 acres. So now they have 20 acres that they have for this plan, this development. And it's just, something that you planned 40 years ago, and that you are just adamant and firm about not changing it and not considering things have evolved, things have changed, communities have grown, culture has changed. So there needs to be a serious look at, is that the right space? I am not against affordable homes. I think we do need it. It's a necessity. But the space where they want to build it is problematic. So, yeah.
Yeah. I did want to touch on care for veterans, I think, a little bit. You mentioned the VA home. The legislature funded a few veterans projects out on this side a couple of years ago. But what are some of the gaps you see in veterans care, I guess, in Hawaii?
So the biggest gap right now is we have a shortage of physicians, of medical providers. So right now, my dad, for instance, he's right there, Norman Medeiros, has to wait 6 months with the VA to get an appointment. So that's the number one problem right now. We are short across the board, not just with the VA, but statewide. Short in nurses, short in doctors, short across the board. So we need to fix that. We need to remedy that. The how is something that I would have to work with the legislator, the current legislative body, especially with the minority caucus, see what they have already planned and, just problem solve.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are some of the solutions to the doctor shortage? Help.
Well, if they would have some type of plan for doctors as far as the cost effective for just reducing some of their costs with operating a business, maybe some tax incentives for doctors to come here. I know a lot of doctors, brand new doctors coming out of med school, they're coming out of med school with like huge student loans, right? And then they have to open up a practice and they have to pay for a building. So if the state incentivizes maybe some tax breaks for the physicians and nurses, then that's a start.
Okay, so I promised we were going to get to the Makakilo Drive stuff, so we're going to get to it now. So this is an audience question. The Makakilo Drive extension is super important to all the residents in this district. Rep. Souza introduced the bill last session to help get it built, but it didn't pass. If elected, what would you do to get this project completed?
So, yes, that was a big concern this legislative session because the community was so hopeful because there was a bill, I want to say it's HR 62, is a resolution to get the funding from to get the transfer of authority from the city to the state. So that's what HR 62 would do. It passed the House. It went to the Senate. It passed the Senate. And then when it came back to the House, somehow it didn't.
Yeah.
What I do know is the bill that Souza had proposed that introduced, I think she introduced it back in 2023. Quick, let me look at my notes. Yeah, she introduced it back in, it was HB 1321. So she introduced it in 2023 and again in 2024, and it didn't move. And the reason for her bill not being passed or being not introduced but read, not passing, moving, is she didn't work bipartisan with our own state senator for our district. So we contacted his office. We did our due diligence and research why 1321 didn't pass. And we discovered that she didn't contact Senator Gabbard's office to come up with a a companion bill, which is similar to her bill in the House. So if a bill that died in the House, if there was a companion bill that went along with it, it would survive in the Senate. So she didn't do her due diligence working with our own state senator in our district, and who's a Democrat. So working bipartisan is essential in order to get things done. That you cannot work as a soloist in the legislative branch.
I want to talk more about bipartisanship in a second, but staying on the Makakilo Drive extension, the city has a top part, the state has a bottom part, but it seems like neither of them want to or are able to start it. I guess as a legislator, how do you break through the logjam? Like, who should do it? Where do you start? If both of those agencies that are important to getting it done are saying, we can't do it yet.
So, as being God willing, I get elected. The conversation starts the day I get elected. It's making phone calls to every stakeholder that's involved with the MDE. And that is working with Rep. Sheila, Garcia, Senator Gabbard, City and County, and the State and Department of Transportation, finding out where the impasses are. And then we can determine how do we get a winning solution for everyone. Without these conversations, a consistent conversation from the day of election until whatever my term is, that is how we move the ball forward. We can't be reactive with MDA because this has been a 20-year-long problem, a concern for the Makakilo district. So, and we got to understand what the stakes are, and everybody has their own reasons to say no or yes, and I need to understand what those are before I can negotiate.
How would you reach? You mentioned bipartisanship. How would you reach across the aisle? Either to your fellow representatives in the House, or the senators in your surrounding district, in the Senate to work on some of these issues.
So great question, because it starts with relationships. Especially if I'm new, the first thing I would do is go to every office and introduce myself, find out what their district priorities are, and let them know what our district priorities are as 43, and then find where we can work together. There's going to be some areas where they're not going to budge, but there's going to be some areas they're willing to compromise and negotiate. And that conversation continues. It's not I just go there my first day and I'm introducing myself and I never go back. They'll be seeing me because I'm trying to strengthen our relationship. I don't see them as Democrats. I see them as a person who just has a heart for their community. And if we can go beyond political parties and just think about, they were elected by their constituency for a reason. And I need to understand that and respect it. So, and they need to understand District 43's priorities as well. And they will know. But we need to work where we can have conversations and figure out solutions together.
This was sort of a question I've asked in different ways at different forums with new candidates or newcomers to running. To a lot of us, I think, on the outside, the legislature often seems like a bit of a black box. You don't really know what's happening, down there at the Capitol. What would you do to make the inner workings of the legislature a little bit more, open, where the public can sort of see what's going on, what's behind the decision making there?
That is a terrific question, because while I was working with One Impact Hawaii, just during the legislative session and just seeing the amount of bills that are introduced during the session, I think it was like 2,300 bills in January through May that they are introducing and getting passed. There is no way an average citizen who works in Hawaii 2 to 3 jobs, we have multi-generational families trying to survive just living here with the inflation rate, with the cost of living in homes. They don't have the capacity or time to read all of this legislation, and the system itself is set up to disenfranchise the constituency. It is not set up for the community. It is for legislators to pass their bills without proper public information, communication of the bills, and timely response. They give when a bill is introduced, it's very passionate. So they give about 20 to 48 hours for people to testify in person, orally, or on Zoom. But they make it in the middle of the day when there are people working. And there have been occasions where people have taken off of work to testify on a bill and didn't get a chance to testify. They just took off of work, and now they have lost their wages and they didn't get a chance to testify. So back to the question is, as a representative, that is our job. That is our job to inform our constituency about bills. And it's a consistent engagement with the community. I would hold precinct meetings, town halls, focus groups, and pass out literature to inform everyone about what bills are being passed or what will be potentially introduced in the next session. But there has to be a consistent information campaign on the bills being introduced and the bills currently, because there's a lot of bills right now that I bet most legislators don't even know what it is in there.
Do you think there needs to be rule changes or like a change in how the legislature works more broadly than just a lawmaker communicating with their constituents?
Oh, absolutely.
Like how they, I'm kind of just spitballing here, but how the legislature runs. What do you think needs to change in that regard?
So I've asked that question.
Yeah.
With the explanation I just mentioned, is how do we correct this process so that it helps the community understand what is being proposed, instead of them finding out when a law bill has passed and it affects their pocketbooks or affects their families. There has to be an amendment to the state constitution. I think it's in the state constitution as far as how the process is done. I know there's some states that have legislative sessions every other year. I would agree with that, because then you don't have legislators who are coming on, new legislators, because they're new, they need a signature bill so that they can tell their constituents, I did that. That's why you have 3,000 bills that is being introduced, because every single person is trying to create a signature bill that they can say, I did this. And it's okay if you create a signature bill and it doesn't pass. You need to explain to your constituency what that bill was and how that bill, if it passed, would have impacted the community. So yeah, it needs to be changed. Amendment to the process is probably the way to do it.
Would you collaborate with Democrats even if it went against, your party leadership? Say if it went against the minority leaders, what the minority leader wants, but this is a bill that you think is really good, it helps your district, but you need to collaborate with the Democrats to do it. But the rest of your party leadership doesn't want that. How do you navigate that situation?
So first, as a representative for District 43, my priority is with my community. So before I even draft legislation or consider something, it'll be done after I have community input. With that, I would then, I'm sorry.
The question was, you're trying to get something passed,
yeah.
but you've got to work with the Democrats to do it, but that irks, the minority leadership, the Republican leadership in the House.
So my priorities are with my community first. Then I will work with my minority caucus to see what solutions we have that they have developed, that we problem solve with that, and then work across party lines, because the ultimate goal is to satisfy the priorities of my community.
This is another audience question. It's about fireworks, and I know that it's a problem here. It's a problem in a lot of neighborhoods. In talking with residents from there, but they want to know what can be done about the flood of fireworks that's in the neighborhoods around here.
That is an interesting topic because it just came up just recently, and a lot of people were upset because it infringed on the Fourth Amendment search and seizure. It allowed the law enforcement to search a premises if they suspect someone is selling illegal fireworks. It's a slippery slope. Something has to be done, but allowing an infringement on Fourth Amendment should not be on the table. Yeah.
This was one of the laws recently passed. It kind of like give them extra search.
Yes, without a warrant.
Right. Well,
Yes.
what do you think? Besides, if you think that's unconstitutional, what could the state be doing to catch more of those illegal fireworks?
Well, I mean, it's shipped in, right? It's shipped in. It's imported into our state. So there should be more control measures at the port. And then actually doing inspections of those containers. That's where it should start, to control, and then they can capture those shipments there. That's the first. And then, implementing, I don't know what the current laws are on the books right now, except for that one that just came out that infringes on the Fourth Amendment. But I would need to look through before I would say that something else needs to be done. Because there's probably a whole bunch of laws that are already on the books that we aren't aware of.
You talked a little bit about, connecting with the community and how you'd work as a legislator. I'm sort of curious about what you've been hearing from constituents in this district. Obviously, you've been, knocking on doors and walking around and talking to people about, what's top of mind for them.
Cost of living. Things are so expensive now. I have run into so many multi-generation families living together, and they can't afford it. Some are saying that they will potentially have to move, and that's sad because a lot of them have been here for generations, and now have to consider moving elsewhere. A lot of the destinations that come up are Idaho, Vegas, Tennessee. But yeah, it's cost of living. It's and the housing market. People can't afford, especially new couples, $1 million homes, can't afford it. That's why people are living together.
Well, what's one proposal you'd have to make it easier for people to live here, to alleviate that cost of living problem just a little bit?
It's a good question. So, as a newly elected leader, I understand that I have huge limitations. I can't go in and say I am going to fix this problem. This problem is beyond me. What I could do now is come up with solutions in terms of how can we get people educated, skilled, and in employment quicker. And I'm a big advocate. I used to be a big advocate of higher education, 4-year colleges. But the student loans and the burden on families is just insurmountable. So I have evolved to focusing on vocational training, trade schools, because they can get that skill set. And we are in need of trade schools. We are in need of vocational training. And and we have a lot of businesses that are suffering right now with staffing shortages. So we need to figure out how do we train people and then get them to sign on to stay with a certain company for a period of time, so that it helps the businesses, helps the person, they can get to work within maybe a year instead of 4-year colleges, right? And then they have a skill, like we are short electricians, we're short truck drivers, we're short logisticians, we're short plumbers across the board in Hawaii. And so we need to focus on that, but we need to introduce these training programs in middle school, maybe even younger, Introduce shop back into the schools. Introduce economics back into the schools. Civics class, you can get your next president out of that civics class. You know what I'm saying? But we need to start doing that in the elementary school, in middle schools, introducing them to what is the possibility of being an electrician or a truck driver or entrepreneur. You know, things like that is what needs to be introduced earlier on. But yes, I would focus on vocational training, also with informing the public, my constituency, with what is available now. There are so many services that we have that a lot of people just don't know that we have. And I would be that conduit, that connector to the community to empower them so that they will be able to help and sustain themselves. Like we had a food bank drive Saturday, and my heart, it was heart-wrenching because there were so many senior citizens waiting in long lines in their car for food. That shouldn't happen. And we need to do better. We need to do better for everyone. Everyone is hurting. So with that, introducing people to services that are available. I didn't know about that service. I heard from a friend of a friend about the food drive. So I went and I volunteered at the food drive. I want to bring that food drive here to Kapolei. And they have it every month. We don't have it here every month? But it's those services that are available. A lot of people don't know about it. So I would like to be that conduit, that connector that empowers the people with information on services that are already available. And there is a lot of services that the state, the city offers, and federal.
This other audience member, you know, it's they want to know what's your, I guess, like we've been talking about, Kapolei has sort of turned into this second city. You know, you mentioned this Haku Kapolei area, this new development that's coming up. What do you sort of see Kapolei, you know, developing into, and what direction should it take? You know, I guess to get more direct, you know, you mentioned this project shouldn't be here. Maybe there's another place it could be. Like, what do you think should be guiding development here in the area?
Community input, number one. I don't think there's been a community regular, maybe quarterly or maybe even biannually, a community town hall to get input from the community. Because like I mentioned earlier, Haku Kapolei was planned 40 years ago under Waihe'e. And just because it was planned in 40 years ago under Waihe'e, it should not be where you cannot make changes. And people who are for Haku Kapolei, and I understand the concerns about HOA fees, because they need that extra third installation to reduce the HOA fees. I'm not against it. I'm just the survey that I conducted with over 5,000 views and over 200 input from the community. All were opposed, not to the affordable homes, but to where the location is. Because the 40-year plan did not have the VA home, the treatment facility, in its plan. So when someone says, well, it was planned 40 years ago, but yeah, it wasn't planned with a VA home. So you can't, they didn't have a crystal ball. So what I'm saying is we need to do an assessment, a reassessment of the area, of what the community wants now before we move forward.
Do you think what was planned 40 years ago, is that still valid given where we are today?
So I don't know the entire plan, but I do know that phase 3 of where they want to put Haku Kapolei is not the appropriate place. Given that Fort Barrett Road, Barrington Highway, Kealanani Avenue currently is so busy during peak hours. And then you want to have ingresses and egresses at each point. You're only going to create more traffic, more frustration. And then what happens to all the cars? We have multi-generational families. So you're saying 700 to 900 homes, let's just say 1 or 2 cars per home, right? Say for instance, a multi-generational family, they have another kid, they have another, adult, they need to park their car. We don't have parking space. Right now, it's a battle where we park our cars. So now you're going to introduce more cars into the community, more traffic. Where's the resources for water and energy and waste management going? We're having trouble right now with HECO, with the brownouts. So we can't power Kalailoa with the new project they are trying to implement, and now you want to build 700 to 900 homes, and we're now currently suffering with brownouts because the state decided to shut down the coal power plant. So now we only have one option. Yeah.
You've said Hawaii's ag industry needs more resources. What sort of resources were you thinking of? Like, what would you propose to help out farmers in the state?
I would, for ag, for food sustainability, my goal, my hope is that we would educate and teach people how to grow their own food, how to grow their own gardens. I'm a gardener, and it's very therapeutic. But I love gardening. I really believe that if we start to teach people how to grow their own food in their backyards, in their communities, like Kapolei could be a great area for a community garden, and start, bartering. Like I have neighbors who are gardeners, so we swap dragon fruit for mango, I grow sugar cane too, sugar cane for peppers, things like that. But we need to start focusing more on food security, how we can be food independent, because what happens when our shipment doesn't come in?
Yeah.
We rely heavily on shipping, so we need to do more exploration on potential solutions. And I know Senator Gabbard, he's in charge of the Agriculture Committee, and because I'm a gardener, I would definitely work hand in hand with them exploring those options.
It sounds like what you're talking about is smaller scale, maybe not even subsistence farming, but just getting more people growing some of their own food, so they're not dependent on the grocery store. Yeah. How do you get more people into that? And is it like, I guess, what are there opportunities for the state to step in and help out with that, getting people more into growing some of their own food?
So I haven't explored what the state has in terms of like grants or services they currently have. I'm sure they have services out there, and that would be my job, is to look for all of these services and inform my community of what is available, what grants are open that they can apply for, so that they can get funding to start their own community garden or start their own home garden. So that's.
So sticking on the economy, you've also talked about wanting, more tax incentives for the high tech sector. I guess what do you? Two questions. What do you see as the high tech sector in Hawaii, and what sorts of incentives do you think it needs?
Can you repeat that question one more time?
You've talked about, and I'm referencing your candidate Q&A, needing tax incentives for the high tech sector. So what sorts of incentives are you thinking of?
Like giving incentives to businesses that have, just incentives that will give businesses more room so that they can hire more people. that they can provide services to the community without being overburdened by costs. And
Yeah, it's okay. There's this other audience question that lists a lot of problems: firecracker work, firecrackers, legalization of marijuana, bicycles and mopeds on the street, illegal parking. These are a lot of issues. I guess I'll ask the question like this: as a state lawmaker, you're juggling tons and tons and tons of issues, not just in your district, but you're also thinking statewide. How do you manage all that? What do you pick to focus on?
priorities are based on the community. So whatever my community decides what is their priority, then that's what I would focus on. Yes, e-bikes has been an issue, fireworks has been an issue, crime, big issue. So there are so many things that you can focus on, but I want to make sure that that's a priority that my community says it is. So that's how I would decide which ones I would prioritize.
How do you plan on staying in touch? Like, if you say you're elected, how do you plan on staying in touch with the community? When you're juggling all the responsibilities of office.
So I would hold precinct meetings, not just Republicans, but every party, the community as a whole. So different precinct meetings, because every precinct has a different issue, right? They have a different concern. Just like every city has a different concern. So that would be done regularly, and then a broader town hall would be done regularly. Continued engagements within the community. I would also have it on my website, an open door policy. People can come in and sit down and we can talk about whatever their concerns are. But I would be accessible to the community.
You mentioned housing as one of the issues. You've heard from the constituents. As you've been talking to them. In the past, there's been proposals to try to find different ways to limit, outside people from coming in and buying a property, or investors from coming in and buying a property. Not all of them have been successful. I guess, how would you make sure housing is going to residents? Do you have any proposals in that area?
So I was disappointed that Senator Alba's bill didn't.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking about.
Yeah, I was disappointed that it didn't make it out of the Senate, and that's exactly what I would support is controlling the outside purchases from people that don't live in the state, or have rules that you have to live within the state for about X amount of years before you can purchase property.
This next question isn't about property, but it is about driver's licenses. Can we change the driver's license law for those over 80 plus years old drivers? The 2-year license limit is outright age discrimination. So I think they're asking, could you get an extension? Have the license renewal period be longer than 2 years
For those that are in
upwards of 80.
So I understand some of the concerns with our seniors, but I think it should be done by a case-to-case basis. Like, as we grow older, like even me being at 55, probably at a certain age, we do a health assessment. I think that's the issue. And then, I don't have any objections with them extending it, as long as they are, and with anyone with health-related issues. Yeah.
But hey, you can still run for president, apparently. Well, maybe not anymore.
Well, judges don't. Well, there's some judges that there's no age limit for judges. Yeah.
Shopping carts are all over. What can we do about that?
Put food in.
Put a tag on it. I don't know. Yeah. Put a tag on it. Maybe the businesses have some sort of device on it that it doesn't move outside of their premises, or even, not sure.
Yeah.
That is. Anybody else know?
Just as an aside, we actually had a story in Civil Beat about this. The reporter was Ben Angarone, and he profiled this guy whose job it is to go around collecting the shopping cart from businesses and returning it to them. We're not quite sure how he finds them, but I do recall someone suggested, finding a way to chip them and track them to see where they end up.
I mean, we do that with, our own cars. Some of, the mopeds was a big issue. My daughter's moped got stolen twice. So we just put an ID tag on it so we can find it. Maybe we can do that where the business kids can track their own and then get their own employees to go and grab the carts.
One of the other things he talked about is reducing taxes on business owners. I'm sort of curious, what specific taxes you think reducing it would help business owners?
Our excise tax, probably. I mean, I think Hawaii, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the few states that have these general excise taxes. I think just reducing taxes in general would help alleviate some of the burden off businesses. Because now you're paying, the minimum wage has gone up. Now you're paying minimum wages that hurts a lot of businesses with a lot of the minimum wage that went up. So we can alleviate that.
If anyone still has questions, wave your note card in the air, hand them to one of the people in the Civil Beat shirt so that they can pass them to me. This is another audience question. Sheila, you were recently endorsed by the House Republican Caucus. If elected, and realizing that there's just a few Republicans now, how do you plan on it being effective in the state legislature?
I think I touched on that earlier on. So I would definitely work alongside my minority caucus. Just because you're the minority doesn't mean you don't have a voice. Our voice is stronger together. And like I said earlier on, it's about building relationships daily with the supermajority. And I don't look at them as Democrats. I look at them as individuals who just have a heart for their community. And if you can get past the party lines and the so-called walls, you can get things done. And it's about mutual respect between each other in order to do that. But yeah, the minority caucus, I would definitely work alongside them closely. And we'll figure things out together, and then we'll forge on working bipartisan.
Okay. Any other questions? This person said do a rally at a park before election. That's not a question, but maybe a suggestion.
Sure.
Could you write it on the card, please?
Yeah.
And hand it to...
It's kind of long. I couldn't really hear earlier when you guys were talking about the fire institute. That was the interest of me, where they're proposing something where they can come into your home under the belief that there's illegal fireworks without a warrant. Is that what you were saying? That there was a bill that was being proposed?
Yes, there was a...
So let me, sorry, we're recording it, so just to restate the question, this was about the bill that recently passed that had to do with, you had some concern that there were some, constitutional issues with it in regards to search and seizure because it would allow police to do certain things that, if you could just sort of go over it.
So the biggest issue with that bill was the infringement on the Fourth Amendment search and seizure, because it allows the law enforcement officers to search with the suspicion there's illegal fireworks.
Without a warrant?
Without a warrant.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's not going to hold it?
Yes.
High court is not going to hold
because
that
it's a slippery slope, and then,
I would say it's real slippery.
Yeah, it's very slippery, because then, what about firearms? You can move into that space. And we don't want to do that. I think they probably need to make that bill clear that it requires a search warrant.
Has that passed?
That became law a few sessions ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And has that been challenged? Yeah.
Not
Oh,
well, just on social media. People have, like I said, it goes back to information, right? People are not informed of what all of the. There were so many bills that were introduced.
Right.
Some were passed, some weren't, and I can almost guess a whole bunch of you can't even name 10. How many can name 10 bills that were passed?
And I think
It's
you're right. I
about
think it
public
is
information
intentional.
and that we're not doing our due diligence in informing the public on all of these bills. So it disenfranchises the community as a whole.
Any other questions? I see some people writing, so we'll let you finish getting those cards done. And again, just hand them to people in the Civil Beat shirts.
So, how are you today?
Good. I remember when I was younger, all that was here was the water park and open field, like you said.
Yes, yeah. It was back in the day, and you could safely walk across the street, Makakilo Drive, without worrying about getting hit. Right now the speeding issue up and down Makakilo Drive is really bad. I mean, we're sign waving and people are like flying up the hill, or they're flying down the hill. It's really risky. Yeah. So something needs to be done.
That's the main one, right?
Yeah, the one that goes up and down the hill.
Yeah.
Yes, there's something needs to be done, and they've explored that repeatedly. And I don't know if the city and county has come up with a solution. I think some had offered up the not the sidewalk but the speed bumps, but there are people who are against it. So. It's a matter of having community input. I think when you introduce legislation and people haven't had the chance to chime in, of course you're not gonna please everybody. You're not. But if the majority of the community feels like at least they were offered, they were provided the information and then offered a chance to provide input, then when legislation is introduced, they're not feeling like they've been left out of the conversation.
Are there even emergency exits out of there? Because we've been writing about, like, in Waianae, they're thinking of opening up Kapolei Pass, or getting, the back way through Lualua open because of what happened in Lahaina. Is there, like, exit routes like that up there if they have to be open?
So for Makakilo, it's that extension. That would be the second way out.
I mean,
right?
like, is there like an emergency road like now
No.
where they can just bust open the gate and it's like dirt?
It's halfway done. No,
Oh.
that they don't. Yeah, and it has to go back. It goes back to the whole transferring of authority from the city to the state, because that's the state. When you have it under state authority, then they get federal funding for it. But that is a important issue, and we as 43 are competing with the same funding with 44. Who is Representative Pila, who wants the same thing for the west side. They want another egress out of the west side. And, one way I think Councilmember Tupola is working on with the federal to get the Kapolei Pass up into Schofield open for emergencies. And that's a possibility.
Yeah. We've got there's actually a couple questions here about this, so I'll kind of merge them into one. We wanted to ask you about your views on, abortion. Do you support a state or national ban on abortion?
So I am pro-life. I believe that life starts at conception. I don't believe that I have personally the authority to decide who lives and who dies. That's just my personal take on it. I understand there's there's a swath of different opinions on it, but that's just my position on life. Because I thank my mom that I'm here today because she decided to keep me, like with everybody here. Their mothers decided to keep them. And I understand, I respect the people who oppose it, want pro-choice, but they have a choice. They have a choice because their moms chose to keep them. So that's just where I stand on life.
Another thing that I think was, on top of mind for people, especially on this side, was, sort of the rising crime rates on Oahu, and on this side in particular recently, particularly violent crime. What do you think needs to be done to prevent or reduce the amount of crime happening on Oahu?
Well, what I see now, what's happening is really, it's a positive thing right now with the neighborhood watches. Like Rep Garcia, who's in the audience, they just had a neighborhood watch self-defense class. So they're taking back their communities. And it wasn't just one neighborhood watch, it was a multiple groups getting together and being proactive within their community. So that empowering our communities to teach them how to defend themselves, how to be vigilant within their community is also essential. And we understand that, city and county, the HPD has a shortage of 400 police officers. How do we resolve that? Solution would be introducing careers within, like we talked about with vocational training and a skill set, trade school and vocational. In middle school, high school, maybe have, law enforcement training in middle school, introducing them to different types of jobs in middle school and high school, maybe having a week where the student goes to HPD and they have, a week there, like an internship as a high schooler. So they can get exposed to what it is like to be a law enforcement officer, right? And then maybe working with HPD with DOEs, finding a way to get these new graduates into law enforcement, maybe reducing the age. I mean, you can join the Army, military at 18, right? So why not allow them with training to maybe not be an officer, but maybe be part of their staff. They can do other things until they get to the age where they can actually be, on the road.
How do you think your military background would help you as a state representative?
So I have years of experience, tested experience, deployed environments. 3 years in Afghanistan, 1 year in Iraq, and one of my jobs is information operations. So a lot of it had to do with engagements with key leaders, negotiations, and just understanding the operational environment. So with all of that experience, I would bring to the legislative, to my role in terms of how you build relationships, how you engage, how you communicate, negotiate different bills, specifically MDE. Rep Sheila has his position on MDE because, like I said, they share same funding.
Sorry,
right?
what is MDE?
Oh, the Makakilo driving.
Oh, driving center.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, and it's about understanding every person's stakes on that particular issue you're trying to resolve or problem solve, and then working from there.
All right, then we'll wrap things up. We'll be sticking around, and Sheila will be sticking around to talk more with you all directly. But why don't you give the candidate a round of applause? Okay. Thank you guys for coming. Grab some food if you haven't already, and you guys have a great day. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.